Welcome to this little bonus episode of The Red-Haired Archaeologist. I am your host, author, and sunscreen advocate, Amanda Hope Haley. I hope that you've enjoyed Season 3 of the Red-Haired Archaeologist podcast. I know that it's been a little bit different because I prioritized the history of Egypt over the history of Israel. I, as a Christian, I've spent my life studying the Bible and Israel's history, and then through school, I've even studied biblical archaeology. But this season, I've really realized just how much bigger the ancient world was, politically speaking, than just Israel. Thinking globally, Israel was a small country that was independent for a relatively short period of time. On the face of things, it's honestly surprising that Israel was able to maintain their culture. Yes, it's changed over millennia. Judaism today looks really different from the Judaism of 2,000 years ago, and really, really different from the old Israelite religion of the time of Moses and really anything that is in the Old Testament. But it survived despite being conquered over and over and over again by bigger empires who oftentimes had much longer histories even than they did. Egypt was one of those empires. Egypt didn't completely conquer and swallow up Israel at any time, but Egypt went through a lot of the same international machinations that Israel did and did lose its culture. Of all of those large countries that were around Israel, I would say that Egypt was arguably the most important. And I hope you agree, after listening to this podcast, that we can better contextualize and better understand the scripture of the Bible when we know more about not just Egypt, but about all of those nations who were interacting with God's people when the scripture was being recorded. As I look ahead to the next few months in the next year, I realize that I'm actually going to be going all the way back to the beginning. My next project is doing even more research about Egypt. And that's going to be for what I hope will be my next book, The Red-Haired Archaeologist Digs Egypt. I actually need to go there and I need to see these ancient sites. I'm eager to experience the modern culture of Egypt. I'm hoping that I can do that this coming spring, although I think I am looking at a significant shoulder surgery. I'm hoping I can do that in the spring, either before or after I take my tour of Israel. In case maybe you've missed it on social media or in the last 12 outros that I've done for the podcast, I will be taking 40 people with me on my first Red-Haired Archaeologist tour of Israel. That'll be May 10th through 22nd of 2023. I'm working with AM Israel Tours. We are going to be originating the tour in 2 different cities. So you can join us starting in New York City or in London. I'm really hoping that my listeners and my readers who are on both sides of that giant Atlantic pond will consider joining me. For those of you who listen to me from other locales, I know I have people who are interacting with me from South Africa and from Australia and Polynesia. There is a land-only option for you. Or if you're like me and you have points because your husband flies a lot for work and you'd rather use points to come, then, that's an option. That's why we have the land-only option. Everyone all over the world is welcome to come join us. You can read all about the tour on my website at redhairedarchaeologist.com/tours. This tour is really important to me because travel is really important to me. Next to our back door, I have this Mark Twain quote, and the quote comes from his 1869 book called The Innocents Abroad. I was first reminded of this quote when I was watching Joseph Rosendo, his program Travel Scope that comes on PBS. It's a tour program. He ends his show, I think every time, by doing a version of this quote. The quote's been hanging next to my back door for years. I really only recently realized just how much that book, The Innocents Abroad, may have subconsciously impacted the Red-Haired Archaeologist series. I think it's been 20 years since I've read the book. It would have been in an English class when I was an undergrad. The book is 650 pages, and it is the detail of a 5-month-long excursion, as Mark Twain calls it, of a bunch of Americans who go and they travel the world. At the end of that 650 pages, Mark Twain writes that travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on those accounts. broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime. I realize that not everyone can travel. Honestly, David and I don't do it very much. We would love to do it more, but for us, finances really get in the way. And I know there are other people who have mobility issues, or maybe they're at a time in their life where they have commitments at home, or maybe fear of flying or fears that just keep them from going and seeing other parts of our nation and of our world. That's part of the reason that I spend so much time online trying to bring you visuals and stories from all around the world and mostly from Israel. Mark Twain, he published this giant book, and it had 234 black and white illustrations of all these places all over the world that these innocents abroad visited. I and other authors and other travelers, I'm thankful that here in the 21st century, we have the technology that we can share what we see in real time with our watchers and with our readers. We can share it in full time. We can do it in full color. And so if you can't travel, if you can't come with me, if you just can't get out, period, then I hope that you don't feel left behind, at least by me. I'm going to continue doing my absolute best to bring Israel and my adventures to you however I can.